Welcome to today's training, Talk Like a Scientist, Building Science Vocabulary Through Speaking and Writing. Today we are going to look at how to help our students communicate through spoken and written language, both at home and in the classroom. We will look at ways to introduce and build understanding of science vocabulary, as well as strategies to reinforce and practice newly acquired words, so that students can successfully take ownership of these words and talk like a scientist. We are so glad that you are here with us today. Here in Hillsborough County, our vision is to prepare students for life. We know that students are constantly learning, both in the classroom and at home. So it is important that we work together to help our students continue their learning in both environments. Our mission is to provide an education and the supports which enable each student to excel as a successful and responsible citizen. Thus, we are very fortunate to have your support, and we are thrilled to be able to share some strategies that both teachers and parents alike can use to help our students grow as scientists. One of the critical science process skills that students acquire and fine-tune throughout their elementary career is being able to communicate with others. Communication in science can involve both verbal and nonverbal, spoken and written forms. Please introduce yourself to others seated nearby you, as you will be communicating with them throughout today's training. In addition, please take this time to create your own science notebook using a few sheets of paper, scissors, and the instructions on the handout provided in your packet. Please label and take ownership of your notebook by labeling the front cover My Science Notebook. Similar to a real science notebook, you will use this space to make note of your ideas and communicate your reflections through writing. As you see at the bottom of the screen, anytime you see this image on our presentation, you will be recording in your notebook. Explicit science vocabulary instruction should occur in your students' classroom daily. It is through the acquisition and expansion of a robust vocabulary that students are able to express themselves and make sense of new learning in the science classroom, since a large percentage of science experiences in the K-5 classrooms require students to observe, describe, and communicate with others. As a result, students need to have a strong command of academic science vocabulary built on multiple exposures and experiences related to seeing, reading, hearing, and using science words. As the slide states, in order for words to be used and committed to long-term memory, they must be reinforced many times in meaningful ways. Research shows that students must have a minimum of 10 to 12 exposures to new words prior to the student's ability to take ownership and commit the word to his or her working memory. That is why science vocabulary support at home is critical and essential for student success. Multiple encounters are important in word learning, but they are not enough. For children to actually learn and use the new words, teachers need to make sure that those encounters allow children to make connections with their prior knowledge and experiences. What this means is that students learn best when they are able to connect new learning with past learning. Students may be able to record a definition. However, this definition will most likely not truly have meaning for the student, since he or she will not necessarily have an experience or background knowledge to support true understanding of the word. Similar to that of building a house, students need a strong foundation in which they are able to construct meaning and understanding of new science vocabulary words that will last them a lifetime. Being that science is all around us in what we hear, see, smell, touch, taste, and do, it is critical that our students are able to communicate effectively as scientists by committing science vocabulary to their long-term memory rather than memorizing a list of words for a one-time classroom assessment.
So if you want to follow along, you will need a tank of water or cup halfway filled with water, a quarter or another coin, and science notebooks. So how do we achieve the goal of building meaning and not short-term memorization? The answer lies in providing students opportunities to define operationally or to use experiences, explorations, and/or background knowledge to make sense of new words. In science, we often plan for these experiences with students by implementing hands-on physical experiences where the students are actively involved in conducting an investigation using many of their 5 senses. Take, for example, the word sink. This is a multiple meaning word that many students may have used and have previous knowledge of in regards to the kitchen sink or bathroom sink. In first grade, however, students must use the word to describe a physical property of objects according to the next generation Sunshine State standards. As a result, they must have a strong command of the word sink in the content area of science. Thus, an effective way for students to build understanding of the meaning sink is through the following investigation. Hold your quarter above your tank of water and carefully drop it into the water. Observe the new location of the quarter. Answer the question, where did the quarter go when it was dropped in the water? By describing the quarter's new location. You may have thought it went to the bottom of the tank, or it went down. Now please communicate what you've observed during our investigation by making a quick sketch of the quarter's new location in your science notebook. Please be sure to label the quarter, tank, and water. We will come back to this sketch later. After testing a few other objects that go to the bottom of the tank, the word sink could be shared. For example, it could be shared that in science, one way to describe an object is what happens when it is put in water. The quarter went to the bottom of the tank of water. The word that describes what happened is sink. Quarters sink in water. Notice that we never explicitly used the word sink until you had a hands-on experience. By allowing our students to explore first, they can then draw upon their experiences to make sense of new words. In doing so, students are more likely to construct understanding of new words in ways that make sense of developmentally and are more meaningful than a dictionary definition. Students could then be asked to think of other objects that they believe sink in water based on similar prior experiences. Not all words need to be built through hands-on exploration. Some words may be better built upon student observations of photographs, diagrams, video clips, and/or demonstrations. Similar to hands-on investigations, students are given opportunities to explore, which they will later use to build understanding of new words. For example, please take a look at the picture on the slide. What can you observe about the frog? Please take a minute to record what you see in your notebook. You may have observed the color of the frog and its surroundings and how similar they are. You may have noted that it is difficult to see the frog because it seems to be hidden. In science, we use the word camouflage to describe things that blend in with their surroundings. Please write the word camouflage by the observations you recorded so that you can remember later that those statements describe a frog that was using camouflage to survive in its environment. By allowing students to observe first, they can then draw upon what they notice in the photographs to make sense of the word camouflage when it comes to an animal's adaptation for survival.
Please reference the 5-day vocabulary plan handout in your packet. Once new vocabulary words have been established with the meanings of the words carefully crafted from experiences, it's time to start talking like a scientist. Students need multiple opportunities to use new words in ways that are engaging and meaningful. Many teachers use the 5-day vocabulary plan to engage students in visual, auditory, and kinesthetic activities to reinforce vocabulary. You have a copy of this plan in your participant packet. The 5-day vocabulary plan does not need to start on a Monday, as the activities begin once new words have been established. These strategies are easy and fun to incorporate at home. Let's have a look at some ways to reinforce vocabulary. Many of our students are kinesthetic learners who like to show rather than tell, and when tackling something new, these students can often learn best while moving their bodies. By connecting a science word with a physical hand motion that gives clues to the word's meaning, we can address this learning style while keeping all students actively engaged and reinforcing important vocabulary. Let's try this strategy out so that you can better help your students show the meaning of words at home. Your challenge is to create a hand motion for the word sink based on your observations of the quarter earlier. As you are working, I would like you to think about the answers to the following questions. How did you come up with this hand motion? How does this hand motion illustrate the meaning of the word sink? In your student's classroom, one hand motion would be selected to represent the word so that the entire class would do the identical hand motion. It is up to the discretion of the teacher to lead the class through the process of creating the hand motion. Many teachers will have table groups create motions and then combine ideas to make one single motion for the class. Sometimes teachers will allow the class to vote to adopt a class motion. Of course, sometimes the teacher will need to select the motion him or herself based on the complexity of the word and its meaning. At home, you can ask your students what words they are working on in class. If a hand motion has been established, you can reinforce that motion at home. If a motion has not been established, you can help your student create a motion that he or she can then practice with you. For our purposes today, just like in your student's classroom, let's come up with one hand motion that we can use to represent the word sink. Please think about where the quarter was before we dropped it. Where was it at? It was above the water, right? And then once we dropped the quarter, where did it go in the tank? It went to the bottom, which we said means that it sank. Using what we observed, let's try the following hand motion to represent the word sink. Put your hand palm side down, even with your eyes in front of your face. Keeping your palm down, lower your hand straight down so that it is now even with your chest. We will use this motion to represent the word sink because the motion of our hand can help us remember that when an object sinks, it falls to the bottom of the space that it is in. Now, every time that you hear or see the word sink, you should show our hand motion for sink. Let's practice. Sink. The power of creating a hand motion for science words is that students can reinforce the meanings of new words numerous times by practicing these hand motions on their own, such as when they are reading science text. Let's practice this. As I read the passage on the slide, every time you hear me say the word sink, show our hand motion. You can use your senses to describe objects. When you describe something, you talk about its properties. A property is something about an object that you can observe with your senses. Some objects sink in water. They fall to the bottom. Other objects float in water. They stay on or near the top. Whether something sinks or floats is a property. The materials used to make an object can help it float or make it sink. When students show the meaning of words while reading or being read to, they truly need to engage with the text and focus on what they are reading or are being read. They are also able to reinforce the meaning of the word that they are practicing because they must link the motion with the visual verbal form of the word. Students who are able to read on their own can practice this as well at their desks, at home, etc. without disrupting others, since they do not need to speak to reinforce the vocabulary words. Challenging students to use hand motions while reading can help them keep engaged in the text as active readers and may be motivating for some students who do not enjoy reading on their own. So now that we have practiced this strategy, how do you think creating a hand motion would help support your students' growing science vocabulary? You may be thinking that reinforcing the words through hand motions would help your students connect through their personal learning style, build confidence, and as well as familiarity with words through multiple forms of practice.
For the next few slides, please reference the Show What You Know handout in your packet. Creating and using hand signals is not the only strategy that you can incorporate to help support your students' growing vocabulary. Students can also show what they know by building a model out of clay or Play-Doh. Students can work alone or in pairs to build a model of a word using clay or Play-Doh. Others can guess what word is being modeled. The finished model of the word can then be displayed with an index card stating the science vocabulary word. The example on the slide shows two students working together to build the word habitat. Students can also act out a word without giving any verbal clues by playing charades. Others can try and guess the word that the students are portraying. The example on the slide shows two students pretending to rest in order to act out the word hibernate. Students can also show what they know by drawing a labeled picture in their notebooks. Quickly go back to your sketch of the quarter in the water tank. Please write the word sink by your sketch. A twist on drawing a labeled picture can include sketching in shaving cream. Just squirt a small amount of shaving cream on a desk or tabletop and instruct students to smear it around carefully to form a white surface layer that they can write on using their finger. Students can sketch images that represent vocabulary words, or if given an example, a statement, or a kid-friendly definition, students can write the science vocabulary word being described. Matching games are a great way to reinforce science vocabulary because students tend to be actively interested and engaged in the game. Matching games can be adapted to meet the developmental readiness of the students when it comes to reading. For example, primary students can match vocabulary words to picture or clip art examples, or real-world objects can be matched to words, such as the case of science tools. For intermediate students, vocabulary words can be matched to kid-friendly definitions. Real-world objects can also be used, but these objects would be more appropriately matched to descriptions or functions. For example, real science tools could be matched to a scenario describing what the tool does. When playing matching games, students can work in pairs, small groups, or even alone if the game is used as a center. The rules of memory can be used to add more of a challenge in which all cards would be placed face down, and students would need to select 2 cards during the turn to see if they have a match. We have communicated our thoughts a few times in our notebooks already through making a labeled sketch as well as recording our observations. Other strategies can include using graphic organizers. Graphic organizers are a way for students to show their thinking about what they are learning. There are hundreds of graphic organizers that students can use. However, we're going to briefly highlight a few and how they can be used. In your packet, please find the example of the blank word web. The simple word web can be adapted very easily. The number of circles can be changed. The concept or word goes in the center. For example, animals that use camouflage. And the descriptors or examples go in the circles coming out of it, such as snow leopard, leaf-tailed gecko, etc. Please take a look at the blank Freyer model in your packet. The Freyer model is a very popular graphic organizer that engages students in truly making sense of the words because they need to be able to state the definition in their own words, provide characteristics associated with the word, and list examples as well as non-examples. Let's try using this graphic organizer using the word camouflage. In your notebook, write the word camouflage at the top of your page. Then make a rectangle and divide it into 4 equal boxes. Complete the graphic organizer reflecting on your prior knowledge and past experiences, including those that you participated in today. Some possible examples of the definition include camouflage is when something blends in with its surroundings. Characteristics could be it looks hidden, it can't be seen easily, it may have the similar colors and/or patterns, and it helps animals survive. Some examples may include frogs, the Arctic fox, and the leaf-tailed gecko. Some non-examples are male cardinals, blue jays, and most people, unless they are using camouflage like hunters or military men and women.
At all grade levels, students are encouraged to be reflective when it comes to what they have observed during investigations, what inferences they can make based on data, and what predictions they have after identifying patterns occurring in nature. Furthermore, those reflections are encouraged to be expressed verbally during classroom conversations and discussions, as well as through written expression in their notebooks. When students are recording their thoughts in their notebooks, they should be encouraged to use science vocabulary words appropriately. At this time, please find the Put It in Writing handout in your packet. Some ways to encourage students would include giving them a word bank or list of a few words to use in their writing. Students can also be encouraged to include vocabulary words by tracing over words with a colored pencil or a highlighter. Students can also be given the challenge to circle or box the science words that they have used in their response. Sometimes it can be hard to motivate some students to express themselves on paper. Some students may not like writing. Other students may be daunted by blank lines on their papers. Some students may not even know how to begin or where to start. You can motivate reluctant students to write by allowing them to write on colored paper or Post-its. You can also create foldables by folding notebook pages in a special way, or simply divide the pages in half so that students do not feel as though they need to fill the entire page with their thoughts. Many students benefit by being able to talk about what they are going to write about with a partner before actually writing, as this helps them organize their thoughts. Even offering students the chance to use a pen instead of a pencil can motivate students to let their thoughts flow on the paper. Using responding prompts can be a huge help as well, because these give students a place to start. We have included a few examples in the responding prompts sheet in your packet that may help your student begin writing. Clearly, it is important for students to know and understand the meaning of science words. However, it is also essential that students are able to recognize words when they hear them, as well as say words themselves. One way that we can help students with this is simply by saying words often and using multiple forms and tenses of the word. An engaging way of doing this is having students use different voices to repeat words out loud. Let's try it out using a low pitch. Say, sink. We saw the quarter sink in the tank of water. Using your low pitch voice, say, sink. Now using a high pitch voice, say, sank. The quarter sank when we dropped in the water. Using your high pitch voice, say, sank. Now, wasn't that fun? By using a low pitch voice, a high pitch voice, a whisper voice, or even a monster voice, etc., students can have fun while practicing saying new words out loud. Please see the Accountable Talk STEMS handout in your packet. Now that your student can say the words, you can get the conversation started and keep it going with Accountable Talk STEMS. Many content areas use Accountable Talk STEMS to get students communicating. However, these handouts depict STEMs specific to science. Students can use these to enter conversations in socially acceptable ways where they are able to state their opinions and engage in dialogue with others.
Once again, thank you for spending time with us today. For additional help, ideas, and information, please contact your student's teacher. For information regarding Hillsborough County Public Schools elementary science events and policies, please contact Shauna Tirado, Elementary Science Supervisor. Thank you for your continued support of science.